Joining us now is Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. Governor, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. You're on the John Fredericks Show, Common Sense. For the Commonwealth, we are the undisputed conservative voice of Virginia.
John, it is an honor to be on the air with you. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, you know what, Governor? I had the privilege of witnessing your very inspiring keynote speech at last week's Red State Gathering Convention in Jacksonville. Your education reforms in Louisiana have revitalized student performance in your state. Will Governor Romney be addressing U.S. education, Governor, in this campaign?
John, thank you, first of all, for those very kind comments. And just a quick primer for those of you listening. In Louisiana, we've implemented one of the country's largest choice-based programs so parents can send their kids where they want to get an education, where they think it's best, and the dollars follow the student. And we've substantially revamped our tenure laws, so we only give tenure to the most effective teachers if they're in the top 10% for 5 years, and we evaluate and pay our teachers based on how well their students are doing in the classroom. You know, Governor Romney has introduced some plans where he talks about, it calls for the federal dollars, the Title I and other dollars, following the students so that the parents do have more choice. He's also called for incentivizing states to reform their tenure laws. I'm actually here in Virginia in part to do some campaign events for the governor and with Paul Ryan, but also to attend Governor McDonald's. He's got an education summit here going on in Richmond. I'll be there with him to talk about what we've done in Louisiana and what they're doing here in Virginia. I truly believe the states that get this right, and so yes, to answer your question, Governor Romney has called for some of these kinds of reforms, but I truly believe the states that get this right are the states that are going to do well economically and otherwise, and the states that don't do this, that aren't aggressive in doing this, are going to fall further and further behind. So I think you're going to see competition push states to not only give more choice, but also more accountability. Look, the unions will tell you we just need to spend more money. The reality is we spend more per student than any other country but Luxembourg. We have doubled per student spending since 1970, controlled for inflation, and the results haven't gotten better. So clearly it's not just about throwing more money at the problem.
Without a doubt. Governor, do you believe the Ryan Plan is the panacea for the nation's economic woes?
I think Congressman Ryan is one of the only people that has actually presented plans and ideas about how do we reform our entitlement programs, how do we get government spending under control, how do we go back to a balanced budget where we're not borrowing $1 trillion or more a year. Now, Governor Romney has said, look, he's going to modify it. It's not going to be identical, and that's fine. But, look, I worked on that Medicare commission back in the 90s. Premium support has to be a part of the solution for our entitlement programs and the runaway growth in government spending. We've got to repeal and replace Obamacare. We couldn't afford the programs we've got, much less this new $1.7 trillion program. We can't afford to be borrowing over $1 trillion a year. So clearly we need somebody with the courage and the convictions like Congressman Ryan has shown. He's been able to pass his budget. It's been more than 3 years since the Senate has passed a budget. President Obama couldn't even get one vote for his own budget in the Democratic-controlled Senate. So, look, there's not a whole lot of competition in Washington in terms of people willing to be specific, willing to be brave, willing to say, how do we balance our budget and stop all this spending and borrowing? So I think Congressman Ryan deserves a lot of credit for being so specific, so brave, and so conservative.
Okay, now, Governor, the Obama campaign right off the bat now, they're saying all week that the Romney-Ryan Medicare plan will effectively end Medicare as we know it today and eliminate coverage for millions of seniors. How do you respond to that?
I think it's absolute nonsense. Look, the reality is President Obama is the one that took over $700 billion out of Medicare to fund his Obamacare plan, cuts that even the government's actuary says are not sustainable, not responsible. Romney and Ryan, Governor Romney, Congressman Ryan, have proposed to leave Medicare as it is for those that are in the program and for the next 10 years, to introduce premium support for younger adults. And by the way, premium support's the way we provide health care for members of Congress, the President of the United States, federal employees. Makes sense to introduce choice and competition in the Medicare program. If we do nothing, the trust fund in Medicare will go broke by 2024. In response to this, the president's just stuck his head in the sand. He's ignoring the problem. He's the one that, under his policies, Medicare will not continue to be able to pay its bills. So you look at premium support. Back in the 90s on the bipartisan commission, when we fleshed this out, the Democratic Leadership Council endorsed it. The AMA endorsed it. The Mayo Clinic endorsed it. The Wall Street Journal endorsed it. So it's interesting to hear President Obama try to call it a radical plan when this has bipartisan support. And even now, 4 years into his presidency, he has yet to offer a plan to save Medicare, to improve Medicare. So I think it's, I think it's a little hypocritical for him, who has not offered a plan, to be criticizing Congressman Ryan and Governor Romney for actually saying, here's how we can save Medicare for future generations.
Right. Now, Governor, you've been an early and consistent critic of Obamacare. Do you conceptually favor universal health coverage if it can be achieved through private rather than public means?
I actually do, and not everybody does, but I actually do. I think that is not only good for our country economically, so folks aren't in emergency rooms, so they don't need to be there for primary and preventative care. And look, I'll be honest, as a Christian, as somebody who worries about other folks, I don't think the answer to every problem is a government program, so I don't think that means we need big government single-payer systems. But absolutely, I think there are private sector solutions consistent with our conservative beliefs that can help folks get the health care they need, whether it's voluntary purchasing pools, buying health insurance across state lines, tort reform, whether it's allowing people to save tax advantage savings in their HSAs and MSAs, and allowing folks that really need help, instead of putting them in the government-run programs like Medicaid, give them tax credits so they can go in the private sector. I think there are ways we can do this without government-run programs that actually reinforce our private sector conservative principles.
Without a doubt. Now, Governor, final question. You served as Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services for Planning and Evaluation under President George W. Are you going to become Mitt Romney's Secretary of HHS should he become president?
No. Well, that's a very kind question, but I've got the job that I want. Being governor is a great job. I'm proud of what we've done in educational reform and tax cuts. Our next big challenge in Louisiana, we're going to be lowering and flattening our tax code. I've announced that's our top priority going forward. I'm happy to support Governor Romney and Paul Ryan because I know we cannot afford another 4 more years of President Obama. But I've got the job that I want. We've done tremendous work in Louisiana, but we've got more work to do. We've got government spending 26%, record low number of state employees going back decades. Credit ratings going up, not down, but there's still more work to do in Louisiana.
Governor, thank you so much for joining our show. Best of luck on the campaign trail and in Louisiana.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great seeing you guys in Florida, and have a great, great day here in Virginia.
Thank you, sir.